All right. Thanks for staying with us. It was really good once again. Thank you very much to Mr. Hamilton for being here. As I said, Food for the Poor has done a lot for Guyana. It was really my pleasure, to highlight their 25th anniversary celebrations. But now on to an even more important part of today's program, and that is the importance of vaccination. As I was saying earlier, I think when we hear vaccination, we still think babies. And I guess it's time for us to move past that. And I can give you a perfect example. In 2014, I was saying to someone that I went to the Ministry of Health and I got some shots, meaning vaccinations, that of course that I'm told would last for the next 10 years. And the person, of course, an adult like myself, said, at this age you're still getting shots. So it sounded really foreign and really strange. So I think today it really is appropriate to have Dr. Persaud back on the program. Dr. Shamdeo Persaud is the Chief Medical Officer, and he is talking about the importance of vaccination and specifically the yellow fever vaccine. Welcome back to Facing the Nation, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika.
Right. Great
I'm
to
happy
have
to be
you.
here again.
Yes, you were just telling me about how crowded your office is because people are in confusion regarding getting this vaccine, specifically yellow fever. Let's talk.
Well, yellow fever, is a traditional vaccine, and vaccines are great. I mean, they're the reason why many of us survived through all these infectious diseases, and even as new diseases come, we're still searching for more. For vaccine. Vaccine is a solution usually to a lot of infections. We have the HPV and, measles, mumps, polio, all of those are very, and Guyana has done well. We've actually gotten a few prizes and awards and so on for our really outstanding vaccine program that started way back on the Dr. Sagala's CMO, Dr. Cummings, continued during my tenure. We had a lot of stalwarts and so. But this yellow fever one, I think, is catching everyone off guard.
Yes, it is.
What happened really is an outbreak of yellow fever occurred in Angola. This is in Africa.
Okay.
And that stimulated all the countries that had yellow fever requirements to impose those requirements now. You see, at this time, and with Zika and chikungunya and Ebola, all our countries are skeptical about introduction of diseases that we have gotten rid of. So vaccine, as I said, is a solution. It's not just a treatment, it's a solution. So what has happened is any country that has the Aedes mosquito, and here once again we're talking about this mosquito. Yellow fever is spread by Aedes mosquito, and once that mosquito is present in a country, they don't want someone coming in with yellow fever and then starting an outbreak. So that's why all the countries have put in the requirements, and the airlines are observing those.
Yes.
So before you can get an airline ticket, you must produce the yellow fever certificate.
This is before you get the ticket. I mean, that would
Even
be a
before,
good thing because
some people have gotten the tickets and they're now coming.
I'm getting
So there's
stories
a
and
lot,
complaints
correct.
that people have purchased their tickets and when they go,
Right,
they can't
right.
travel because there are even claims or complaints, I should say, of some people who were insisting
Refused.
that they have this vaccine, but they don't have the cards.
Yes. Well, the card is evidence, and the yellow card is what you require. Regularly, if you go for a vaccine, you get a blue card as an adult, you get a
Child.
smaller card as a child, pink or blue, depending on boys or girls or whatever. But the yellow card is the certificate that you need to carry with you in your passport.
So even if
All
you
right?
have a blue card
No,
alone,
that wouldn't work because that's not the international certificate recognized by, the international bodies, authorities as being covered by the yellow fever vaccine. So what's the requirement?
if you have the vaccine,
vaccine,
and I'm using
right.
myself as an example here,
Yeah.
viewers, you have the yellow fever vaccine, but you have the
Previously.
blue book
Now,
that says that's there. What do you
They
do
still
now
won't
to get
accept that. No,
So-
here what's happening. So the requirement, and WHO recently reviewed the requirement. First, it used to be a 10-year requirement. Every 10 years, you had to have a booster shot of yellow fever. And I think that's what you were talking about. You go
Yes.
every 10 years. Now, from last year, they revised that requirement and said there is a once-in-a-lifetime yellow fever requirement. So even if you have had one shot, either as a child or as an adult, and you have that record, and this is the important point. You must have that card which states the date when you had the vaccine and the batch from which the vaccine came from. You can bring that card to the ministry or to any of the regional centers. We have regional centers in Region 6, and this is wherever the senior health visitor is located.
Okay.
All right, so Region 6, Region 5, Region 4, Region 3. Region 3 is at West Demerara Hospital. Region Region 6 is at New Amsterdam, Region 5 is at Fort Wellington. So you go to each of those centers where the senior health visitor is. You can, if you have an evidence that you did receive the vaccine, she will write up the certificate for you. If you don't have evidence, then the vaccine has to be re-administered. And it should be at least 10 days before your travel. That's the other requirement. So you can't be traveling tomorrow and coming today to get the vaccine, right? Then it still might not be adequate for entry into that country as a requirement.
Okay.
Right, so I think these are some points that we really need to review with everyone.
Dr. Persaud, and again, viewers and Dr. Persaud, this is not to knock the Ministry of Public Health in any way, but this is serious and we need to get on board with it.
It is. That's why we're here.
Yes.
Right?
There seems to be a lack of PR, public announcements, because people keep saying, we don't know that if you don't get this thing, you can't travel.
I know, people memory a little short. And we won't blame the public anyhow. But, we've been saying this, and we've been saying this all along the line. When we talk about other vaccines, we do remind people to check their cards. We do remind people to keep those cards. A lot of people have had the yellow fever certificate, the yellow card, and then they lose it. One group told me they traveled and they don't know, like the people in the country took away the card. That can't be. The card is like your passport. Take it back. You give it, they examine it, they record what they have. They should return your card is your card. It's a property actually of the Ministry of Health, of Public Health. So you should take back your card and keep it like your license, like your ID, like your passport. So retain that yellow card. Keep it with your passport. And, we've said this before. I think the Angola thing really put us in a spot.
Yes.
Right? And then countries impose this immediately. Like Suriname started about 2 weeks ago. And I said, okay, so Berbice Center started to operate and we started to issue certificates. So if you have received the yellow fever vaccine in the past and you have the card, take it to one of your regional centers. They will write up the certificate for you. If you have not received, or to the Ministry of Health, to the Vaccine Center of the Ministry of Public Health on Brickdam. All right. If you have not, or you cannot recall, or you do not have the card, if you did not get the vaccine or don't have the card, then you will have to be revaccinated. Please do that at least about 12 or 11 days before, because you should get the vaccine 10 days before you travel.
And there is no harm in if you
there is
had
no
it
harm,
and it's going back
yes,
into your system.
and it's a booster, because we do boost in the instance. And yellow fever, even though it's a live vaccine, it is so neutered that you won't get the disease as it is from the vaccine. All right? I mean, that's how vaccine is a small particle similar to the germ to stimulate your body to produce the antibodies. Now, the antibodies that we produce is what really fight off these diseases. So once we have these antibodies in our system, we'll be able to defend ourselves, sort of, if the real germ comes along. Right? Remember, this germ is spread by a mosquito. Okay? It's not in the Americas, it's not in most parts of Asia, but in Africa we know there's transmission. And people are traveling.
How serious? What is the serious level of yellow fever?
Yellow fever has caused a lot of deaths in the past. And since the vaccine came, we've almost reduced it to zero. Yellow fever is a febrile illness, but it comes with yellowness of the eyes and the skin, joint pains, very similar things to what we see in Zika and chikungunya and malaria and so on, and hepatitis, so it could be confused with a lot of diseases. But I said the solution really is vaccination.
All right. I have, and I'm going to use him as an example, somebody who's very close to me. I have to be like a mother today to get him to go and get vaccinated.
Get his vaccine.
He has this issue with having chemicals injected into his body.
Yes.
I don't think his problem is the needle. His problem is the chemicals, and I know he's probably watching. His problem is the chemicals going into his body. And I know there are lots of other persons out there like him. How would you try to allay those fears?
If there are a few persons who are allergic to some of these substances and these vaccines, eggs and so on, and we can give those, I can sign an exempt certificate for those persons. So if for some reason someone is unable to take the yellow fever vaccine, or have a reaction, or have some other reason why they can't have a yellow fever vaccine, we can write an exemption certificate for that person. Okay. And that will allow them to travel. But only, I think, in this instance, I can do that as the chief medical officer. Because we have to examine carefully and ensure that, the person meet the criteria for an exemption. Otherwise, take the vaccine, or if you had the vaccine, come and get your certificate early.
Let's talk about other vaccines now,
vaccines.
apart from the yellow fever. Now, again, to use myself as an example, because I don't think anything is wrong with this. I've had MMR, in terms of the vaccine, when I had
Yes.
MMR, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. How important are all of those other vaccines? And is it a myth? Because again, in our heads, we believe that once you're no longer a child or a baby, a toddler, you don't necessarily need to have these shots periodically. How important and
Right.
how often should we get checked in terms of being vaccinated?
Well, of course, the child vaccine program, the EPI, the expanded program on immunization, really targets we target by the end of the first year, that the child must be fully protected against all these infections that we offer vaccine, except for HPV. We start HPV in girls from about 10 to 13. Okay, that's the only one that we delay the onset. But by 12, they should have received the MMR, the pentavalent, which is a 5-in-1 vaccine. Now it's given on the thigh, along with the polio. We've switched now to a bivalent polio, and eventually we'll switch to an injectable polio. Okay, so we're doing all these modifications because we're looking for more effective vaccines. All right, and it covers against 16 different antigens, 16 different diseases. So that's the child. Now, as you become an adult, some of those vaccines need boosting. Some of those need boosting, and the boosting is usually 5 or 10-year period throughout adulthood. Into the elderly period, we've started to add influenza vaccines, because we know influenza particularly causes a lot of elderly people to develop pneumonias and so on. So we've started to add those, and as I said,
And this is because the immune system is
because
not
as you know,
strong enough.
and then they start having problems with heart failure, so they have a little water in their lung, they cough, smokers,
Yeah.
so they have a little more high risk of developing influenza and maybe succumb to that disease. So we look at prioritizing the elderly. We've started to look at chickenpox, introduction of chickenpox, which I know a lot of people.
I would volunteer first for the
Yes,
vaccine because
but
I've never
we're
had
targeting
chickenpox.
most of our chickenpox problems seem to occur at institutions like at our orphanages and so on. So we've started with health workers are a critical group of people when it comes to immunization. So they have a separate regular boosting regime, because they're health workers. They see patients with these conditions and they can contract them. We don't want a sick workforce, right? So we immunize the health workers regularly throughout their career in health. And chickenpox is one of those that we would usually administer them, because they handle people with the disease. So you would expect that they would be at high risk. But others too. For people at ports, points of entry, we've had vaccine campaigns to ensure that they're covered. For farm and agriculture worker, we've encouraged tetanus. The tetanus, the DT. Right? This is diphtheria and tetanus. Diphtheria is a respiratory infection too. So those are all very, very critical vaccines.
And adults should have these too.
Yes, so at 1 year you're covered, but you're not protected. You still need boosting as you go along. Except now, as we say, for yellow fever. For polio, you don't need a boosting. Once you've passed the period when polio susceptibility is up to the first year in life, you're very, very unlikely that you'll contract and develop polio disease in your adulthood. So you don't need a boosting for that. All right, neither do you need for measles. But occasionally we still boost. Pregnant mothers, we have some special requirements for those persons too, and women who are intending to. We would like for women before they even get pregnant. As you prepare, say, well, I'm ready for childbearing. I should go and check, make sure my vaccines are in order. Just like how I'll get my HIV test, make sure my hemoglobin is in order. So that's in a nutshell what the vaccine program is all about.
All right.
And it's about health. It's not about sickness. Right?
Right. So you see, adults, you don't have to be afraid and worry about chemicals being injected into your body. It's for your own good.
It's just like breathing in the germ or getting a little wound that the germ will enter. We're just giving a purified form of we call it the antigen. That's the particle from the germ that will stimulate your body now to produce the antibodies
to fight
against it.
Great. Let's talk, because again, at the beginning you did say, I know, and viewers, I must tell you, Dr. Persaud rushed in here because he's being rushed now for everybody who's trying to get the yellow fever vaccine so that they can travel out or wherever it is that they're going. Let's talk about your crowd and
how we manage
and how are you managing that, because like I said, there is a rush right now.
Right. So, we have opened the center early, and we also have demands for site visits. We've gone to ministries, we have government officials who are traveling that need vaccine. So, we're juggling all of this. We have some additional staff who's helping out because the documentation is the critical part. And, of course, giving the vaccine
Giving it.
safely. The nurses know how to do that very well, but all the writing up that needs to be done. Because when you do come, if you never had a vaccine or you don't have a card, they'll have to prepare a blue card for you. Then they'll have to prepare the certificate for you with all the relevant information so you can ensure that it's stamped and signed and so on. So we're open from 8, today's up to 3:30.
Yeah, Friday.
Right, today. And then Monday's a holiday, so we do have a rush at the
So
ministry.
no weekends. And this is
No
where?
weekends. This is at the Ministry of Public Health
at the
compound
ministry,
at Brickdam.
at Brickdam,
The other centers at the regional hospitals are open, all the regional centers. So find out, even if the senior health visitor is not at the hospital itself, she's at a health center
The
close
health
by.
center.
Right? So
Okay.
you can call and find out if you're in region 6 or 5, 3 or 2 or 10. You can also find out. So everyone need not come to Georgetown. All
Okay,
right?
and
We
crowded.
have adequate stocks of vaccine too. Right, thanks to the support we've got, and I think the Ministry of Health, even though we still have a few shortages here
Yes,
and there,
I hear about those shortages.
we're doing better. I think we're doing better in some regards. And for vaccine, in the instance of vaccine, we did run very close to the stock level a week or so, but we have been able to replenish, and we have enough yellow fever vaccine, so there's no shortage, and we are expecting even more to come in now that we've anticipated what the needs are.
Yes, and
we've
especially
calculated.
now,
Yes,
right, now that people are listening,
Heavy travel
you're
too,
forced
yes.
to. You have to, because if you have to go, and then of course this is it's not necessarily summer for Guyana, but
Yeah.
people have now
Right.
dubbed it summer. But this is the season where
People
we
will
have
move.
to, especially
Yeah.
children, they're going
They're
out
going
to spend
out.
a month or two abroad,
Right.
and
And
so you
important
have the rush.
places: Suriname, Brazil, Venezuela, Trinidad, Barbados is requiring, Jamaica is requiring. The North American countries may or may not, but you should be
relaxed.
safe,
But
right?
yeah,
You should
it's
be
safe.
safe. If you're going to any of the African countries, absolutely needed. If you're going anywhere across Asia, China, India, Bangladesh, you absolutely need to. All right, you're going to Eurasia, like the Eastern European countries and so on. You do need because this Aedes mosquito has
It's not
spread
going
all
anywhere,
over,
and
it's
yeah.
spreading more and more diseases. We don't want to add yellow fever to that lot. Even for here too, we are requiring people coming into Guyana also have their yellow fever certificate too, and we would like our population also. So take this opportunity to, even if you're not traveling, to
Just
have
get
your
it.
just
Just
get
get
it.
it. I
Just
mean-
get it. If you had one in your lifetime and you have the card,
Just
keep your evidence.
Keep your evidence.
Right.
Again, do we have, in the event that there is, I'm not asking for it, but are we at a stage where we can take off a yellow fever outbreak, if possible?
I think
And
we
I don't know if you have the
we
numbers.
Yes.
What are the numbers looking
for
like
the
so far?
For the under one, we have maintained close to 99% of those babies covered with yellow fever. So all children born from, say, 1964, when vaccine really started to take off here, anyone, and that would put us like people in 50s,
In the
right? Like
50s.
Guyana, like let's say 50s, like early 50s. All those persons would have had one yellow fever vaccine. So in terms of the protection, I think it exists. What the travel require is this document.
It's just the document.
It's the document.
But-
I am confident that a lot of people, even those we are revaccinating now,
They
have
have it.
had their
They would
because
have
we've
it.
had we have had like 3 yellow fever campaigns. In the last 20 years, 3 major yellow fever campaigns, all right, where nurses went out all over. And up to 2010, we had a large campaign together with Brazil, because both countries, Guyana and Brazil, are looking to certify the elimination of yellow fever. One of the requirements is that we must maintain above 95% coverage. We aim for 99. We aim for 100 actually, right? But there are a few people who can't take it for one reason or another. So those will not make us achieve full 100.
In
All right?
recent times, have you seen any cases of it here?
Not during my time as a medical practitioner or even as a medical student. We have
Okay.
not had a case. And I don't have the record, but it seems beyond 35 years we have not seen a case.
Okay.
All right? So that's a safe, but we have the conditions. As I said, we have the mosquito and we have a salvatic environment too in the hinterland. There's a monkey linked to yellow fever. The yellow fever to some primates. And this keeps coming up because we hear about Ebola being linked to, the
yeah.
primates and then transferred to man. So this could happen.
It could happen.
It could
So,
happen.
this is
But-
where we use.
But it's
the
people,
saying, prevention.
It's people who are moving that the risk exists. We don't want to stop that. The world is quite a free one now, and people are free to move. People are traveling far more. I think our arrivals have doubled this year.
Yes.
And with we're still in a
Yeah,
jubilee.
so we have to be careful. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the thing. It's good. We're
We're still
welcoming all of these people, but with them, you're welcoming germs too.
That's
germs
right.
and
And then
diseases,
we open a lot more to our African brothers and sisters. We have,
Yes,
for
we
example,
have
we have them
African
coming here as
students.
students. We have them coming here as workers. We welcome them with open arms, and we're not blaming them for bringing anything. What we would really like is that we are prepared. That first of all, each individual Guyanese have gotten their vaccine and they're protected against yellow fever. So even by chance, even if one do slip in who has
Yeah.
the germ, we can deal
Nip
with
it in the bud
We
easily,
nip it in the bud. We prevent, and vaccine is prevention. Vaccine is not wait for it to happen and then start treating symptoms and signs and looking for some wonder drug. Vaccine is the solution. If we were to get a vaccine for Zika now, we'll probably bring that problem to a halt very quickly.
But right now, there's
right
none.
now the research is going on. Even malaria, HIV, vaccine research is ongoing. They continue to search. They haven't found a solution yet for those.
Okay, all right,
So very,
great.
very
And
important.
viewers, I have to let Dr. Persaud go in a bit. Again, this is not to alarm anyone, but it's basically a precautionary method. Before you have to go, Dr. Persaud, just anything that you'd like to leave with the public regarding vaccination and so
as
on.
I said, it all seems to lead to this mosquito. And we are, all of us at the Ministry of Public Health, we're on a campaign against the Aedes, right? We love people. We try to treat those who have diseases carefully to make sure they're not harmed. But we need to all come together and address this mosquito problem.
Okay.
We're breeding them in our surroundings. There's rain falling. We're collecting rainwater. Clean up your environment. Ensure that you eliminate the breeding sites. And if you're planning a travel, from the time you start thinking about going on that holiday, get your vaccine.
Get yourself
Go and
together.
get your
All right.
vaccines.
Thank you
All right?
so much, Dr.
Yes.
Persaud, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Shamdeo Persaud. And of course, we were discussing the importance of being vaccinated, and the issue was about the yellow fever vaccine. Again, viewers, this was not to alarm you, but it's a precautionary method. And I trust that the young man who is very concerned about the chemicals being in his body, I trust that Dr. Persaud would have put his fears to rest for a bit. This is Facing the Nation. I'll take a quick break and come back to wrap up with you. Stay tuned. right, viewers, welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Of course, I am going to wrap up with you a little earlier today, but once again, before I come off the issue of health and vaccination, remember Dr. Persaud was saying if you have the blue card and it has it's stated inside the blue card, because I took it out just to give viewers an example of what it looks like. This is what the blue card looks like. So if you have this card, you still will need the yellow card in terms of evidence that you have, of course, with the information in the yellow cards of evidence that you would have been vaccinated. You have the yellow fever vaccine. He also gave information that some of the airlines are even asking for the card to show that you have been vaccinated before you even purchase the ticket. And I think that is really, really a good idea, because again, I've heard about cases recently where people actually got to the airport and then, they're told, especially if you're going over to Suriname, and then you're told that you can't go because you don't have this vaccine. I know of another case maybe a year or two ago where a young man was doing some work. He entered one of the countries and he actually was able to leave Guyana. He entered one of the countries and he was detained at the airport. Of course, not in a criminal sense, but he was detained because he had no card to produce to show that he would have had the yellow fever vaccine. So again, this is all about your own health and about stuff not being able to delay you in whatever it is that you want to do. Life is free now, so ensure that you take the necessary precautions. Again, if this is the card that you have, if this is what it looks like, you still need to go to the Ministry of Public Health and get a senior officer, a senior medical officer, to ensure that you have the yellow card. That will say that you are certified and you can travel to whichever country. Again, this is not only to protect yourself, but it's to protect our entire nation. Once again, I'd also like to thank very much the public relations manager for Food for the Poor Guyana Inc., Mr. Wayne Hamilton. Of course, he was here earlier. We had a very spirited discussion about the achievements and plans and so on for Food for the Poor Guyana Inc. Remember, their walk is coming up on Sunday, the 3rd of July. That's the day before the holiday. And of course, that begins at the Bank of Guyana. And he did say that the contribution is $3,000. And you should try your best to be a part of it and to contribute, because as you know, Food for the Poor Guyana Inc. has done a lot for Guyana, and they need the support and they need the donations and so on. I have always urged you to be good Guyanese citizens. This week I'm going to stress being good. When you have visitors, you try to be on your best behavior. When you have strangers coming into your home or into your yard, you try to be on your best behavior. So Guyana will have some visitors beginning this weekend going into Monday, because Monday is the 4th of July. When you hear the 4th of July, you think about the big independence celebrations in the US, but this year the 4th of July is also a holiday here in Guyana. It is CARICOM Day, and the heads of government, the CARICOM Heads of Government Summit also begins on the same day, which means we'll have various heads of states in our country. So try to be on your best behavior. I'm not saying that when they're gone, that's the opportunity for you to behave bad, but try to be on your best behaviors. They will be in the country. As you know, Guyana chose to host it this year. It's not necessarily our turn to host it, but because of I think it's Dominica, because of the tragedy that they had in terms of the hurricane last year, they are not necessarily prepared and ready to do it. So Guyana is one of the sisters, the CARICOM sisters, or brother. Well, I like to think as Guyana as a female. So as a sister, Guyana has opted to host those meetings. Currently, the president, His Excellency, the president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, is in Suriname, along with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade Minister, Mr. Carl Greenwich. They are currently in Suriname having talks with the head of state of Suriname, Mr. Baltese. And of course, those are also a pre-meeting. It's also a pre-meeting to the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting here coming up early next week. So once again, Monday is a holiday, so do not use Sunday and Saturday to imbibe and as I said, misbehave, use the holiday to get some probably well-deserved rest. And even if you're going to have some fun, do it responsibly. Remember that you always must think about your lives, and there's always, again, not to sound like a cliche, but there's always tomorrow. So whatever you do, ensure that it's safe, ensure that you have safe fun. Right now, the Korean community is in a state of shock. And it has gone past community state, it's country state. We keep preaching, and every time there is something that goes wrong, whether it be there is a fight between a husband and a wife, or children, or a husband kills his wife or kills some family member, we get into the state of mourning, and then we lose it and we forget, and everything is relaxed after that, and we forget that domestic violence is still an issue. I was reading earlier, there was unfortunately and there are times when I get emotional about this, because what drives a man, he stabbed his mother, he stabbed his wife, and he's dead, and the baby, and you left them there to die. I heard earlier that unfortunately he was shot by the police and he had emergency surgery. So let's pray not only for that family, but pray for families and persons who are involved in violent relationships, and who are in households where domestic violence takes over and where it takes a toll. And for those of you who know that there's somebody who's suffering and probably afraid to get out, see how best you can support. I know the cry is always, you try to help them, or you tell them to get out, and they still end up going back into the situation. But it's unfortunate, but you can't give up on them. So as you enjoy this weekend, this long holiday weekend, don't only think about fun, but think about all of those things. I'm not saying allow it to bring you down, but think about all of those things, and remember to continue to pray for our nation. This is where I have to leave you this week from Facing the Nation. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. I am Malika Ramsey. This has been Facing the Nation.